Welcome to Hickory Ridge Orchard. I'm Farmer Brant and I hope you enjoy your tour. Here at Hickory Ridge Orchard we grow a number of varieties of apples. I think we have a total of 26 varieties that we're growing right now, but that's only a small fraction to what is in the world. They guess that in today's age there's approximately 9,500 different varieties of apples. And the reason being is because when you plant an apple tree always requires another variety different than itself to pollinate. And so if I took this Rome apple off this tree here and I was cut this open, and in fact I can cut it open. If I cut this open, there's obviously going to be some seeds on the inside, and these seeds are always half of the parent, which in this case it'd be a Rome, and then half of another variety, which could be anything. We're not sure any of the 26 varieties that are here. And so if you were to take this seed and you were to plant that, it would not be a Rome apple. It'd be half of whatever, it would be half Rome and half of what other, similar to humans. And so you're half of your mom and half of your dad. And so it's kind of neat, but that's how you get so many different varieties to produce. And the settlers back in the 1800s used to have competitions on who could, develop the best variety for either taste or storage or pie making or whatever it could be. And so that's why we ended up with so many different varieties. In fact, back in the 1800s, they guessed that there was closer to 17,000 different varieties across the world. And a lot of those varieties have obviously gone extinct because there might have been only one or two trees of certain varieties. But there's actually a group that goes around now and they search for old homesteads that were from the 1800s to find what are thought to be extinct varieties. And in the last 5 years they found 12 varieties that were thought to be extinct. And what they do to get the same variety of apple tree that you want, you take your branch and you'll actually cut your branch and then you graft it to a rootstock. And so you can kind of see over here an example of that. So this here is the rootstock, this is the variety, and then what they've done is they grafted together, and then this tree has grown off that rootstock. And so that's how you get the same variety over and over and over again. And so what they've done on these trees that they thought were extinct is they took cuttings from the branches and they went and grafted them to a rootstock and now are making them available to people again. So we're an organic setting out here, so obviously we let the weeds grow up tall, and we have chickens. There's a mobile chicken coop over there that has wheels on it that we pull around the orchard. We let the chickens kind of roam around and they clean up the apples, and they also help with pest management. But our orchard is a mixture of older trees and newer trees. A lot of these newer trees, this is their first year producing, and it took probably about 3-4 years for that to happen. Now they're called a dwarf tree, and the reason they're called a dwarf tree is because it depends on the rootstock that they're put on. And so the rootstock that this tree was put on is a dwarfing rootstock, and it will only create a tree that's 30 to 40% the size of a standard tree. Okay, a standard tree is a tree that's planted from seed. And so to give you an idea of the size of a standard tree, it can stand 45-50 feet tall, and it can be just as wide. Now a dwarf tree, this tree, if I was to just leave it and let it go, it could probably get 12 feet tall and maybe 8 feet wide. But I don't want it to get that big. I want to try to manage it, keep it small so people can pick from the ground. There's also semi-dwarf, so that's in between a standard and a dwarf tree. And they're about 60% the size of a standard size tree. And those are a little bit bigger. A lot of people like to grow them because they don't require support like what we have here. And since they don't require support, there's less management. People can just plant it in the ground, water it when they need to, and then the roots below will help support that tree. Now with a dwarf tree, they require support because the roots are usually very shallow, and when you get a tree that's loaded with apples, it'll just topple over. So we choose to grow dwarf trees because they produce fruit in that 2 to 3, 4 year range. A semi-dwarf won't produce fruit until 5 to 7 years, and a standard tree sometimes won't produce fruit for 10 to 12 years. And so planting a tree and hoping for fruit 10, 12 years later is kind of hard these days. So, but yeah, that's kind of what we do here for our operation. A little bit of history about apple trees there, and I hope you guys enjoyed it. At Hickory Ridge Orchard, we utilize chickens for pest management. We have approximately 250 laying hens that navigate free range throughout our farm and throughout our orchard. They're very helpful on multiple fronts. They're going along and they're eating up all the different pests that have come along trying to get the apples. They scratch the dirt and they kind of flip the soil over, and they're eating grubs and pests on the ground as well. And then when the apples fall, we don't necessarily want the apples to stay on the ground because they might have disease or pests within the apples as well. And so the chickens will actually come along and they'll eat the apples and clean up that for us. And so it might take a little work to take care of the chickens, but the best thing is they do a lot of work for us in return. They have a natural fertilizer, obviously, through their droppings when they're walking through the orchard, and that returns to the soil and actually helps our apple trees grow with the different nutrients that are going in the soil from that. And so we have some chickens here in the coop. I'm going to walk in there real quick and I'm going to grab some eggs out of the laying box, and then you'll see some chickens actually come out here and greet you. So. So here are some eggs that I just grabbed from the laying box. A chicken will actually, typically, at least a laying hen, like different breeds that we have are Rhode Island red chicken or a barred rock. We have some Wyandottes, but they'll actually typically lay an egg about once a day. And so we go around, we collect these eggs, and then we'll take them in. We have a egg washer. We'll put them through our egg washer, clean them up. We'll box them up and then put them right into the refrigerator. An egg actually has a natural bloom on it, so when it's laid, it has a natural bloom on it that protects it from bacteria. With these eggs, you'll see there's a little bit tint of color, but I also have some chickens, they'll lay blue eggs, they'll lay green eggs, they'll lay white eggs. These are obviously different colors of brown eggs. Heck, I've even seen some eggs that were almost like a black color. They're just so dark. That all depends on the breed of the chicken, but when you crack this egg open, the inside is just like a regular egg. There's nothing different about the egg. So again, chickens are really great. Not only do we get something amazing from them that we eat almost every day, but they help a lot with pest management and taking care of our orchard and trying to keep our apples protected from the everyday pests. Here on the farm, we actually have goats that help us with many of different things. Out in our wooded area here, it's become so thick that we're unable to even walk through or use this part of our farm. And so what we do is we actually use the goats to help clear out the brush. And so they'll go and eat all the leaves and take out some of the brush to help clear it up. That also helps with the timber and the growth of the timber by eliminating some of that brush and letting the undergrowth grow back up. And so we'll do section pasturing with the goats, and so we'll actually take the goats out of this pasture and move them into a different wooded pasture here in probably another couple months. And a lot of people would use goats for different things. So some of these goats are actually for milking. People will use the goat's milk to make soaps. They'll drink the goat's milk. I know a few farmers that make goat's milk cheese and sell it at the Columbia Farmers Market. And so goats are definitely essential to the farm, and they help keep pastures clean, wooded pastures clean. Sit, sit, sit. This is George. He is an English Shepherd. He's a really good farm dog. He's been on the farm for about 4 years now. Dogs in general are very, very essential to the farm. We have a lot of issues, especially here on our orchard, with raccoons getting into the orchard and trying to eat the apples and peaches. We have issues with squirrels actually as well. They'll get into the orchard and they'll just take a few bites out of an apple and they'll run off back to their home. As much as even woodpeckers. Woodpeckers are a huge issue in our orchard. They'll come along, they'll land on the tree, they'll either peck the bark and hurt the tree, or they'll come and right when the apple is just ripe, they'll peck the apple a couple times and then they'll fly off and not to be seen again. And so dogs really help with keeping birds and other varmints like that out of the orchard and off of the farm. Even though George doesn't have any formal training, he is a herding dog, and dogs have been used for herding for many of years, especially herding goats and sheep and cattle. So, like I said, they're very essential for the farm. They do multiple tasks, and really all they want is to be loved on and fed. So.